Now at 9, why businesses in Thayer, Kansas worry the latest road construction could turn their community into a ghost town. Plus, Pitt State opens its new simulation hospital at its nursing school.
Franklin Technology Center students are getting their hands dirty by restoring this historic building in downtown Joplin. I'm Anthony Saviello with the story.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Tanya Bach. PSU campus police respond to an incident involving a firearm. The incident occurred last night near the intersection of Ford and Homer. Police say the aggressor and all victims are students at Pittsburgh State University. Authorities arrested a suspect near Carney Smith Stadium shortly after the incident, but they have not yet filed formal charges in the case. Pittsburgh police are seeking a person of interest in a homicide that happened earlier this month. On August 20th, officers were dispatched to Jimmy B's Bar at 202 North Locust Street in reference to a shooting incident. According to the report, an adult male, Justin Krogan of Pittsburgh, was found shot and later died from his injuries. Authorities have not named the person of interest at this time. There's been no word yet on the possible cause of a fire that destroyed a vacant mobile home just northwest of Joplin this morning. Fire crews were called to the 3300 block of North Explorer Lane a little before 2:30 a.m. When they arrived, the mobile home was engulfed in flames. Just hours before the fire, deputies had responded to a report of suspicious activity in that area. Neighbors say the mobile home was under renovation and no one lived there. No one was hurt in the fire. The city of Joplin releases a study on pedestrian safety. The study finds more than 15 crashes involving pedestrians happen every year for the last 4 years, with at least one being fatal. The study also recommended 3 categories to reduce these numbers: education, enforcement, and engineering. The Joplin City Council will vote on Tuesday whether to adopt the recommendations. And we provided a link to the full study on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Businesses from Thayer, Kansas are struggling with the impacts of road work, and some report losing up to 75% of their income. KOAM's Fernanda Silva has the story.
Brian Schutz and Tracy Harbers share a similar concern. They're not seeing the businesses they manage getting as many people through the doors as they used to. The reason? Construction on US 169.
They can get here, but they go a long way around all the way to get here. People down south and east of here has to literally go around through Parsons and up by Erie and then back around on 47 and then back down to Thayer.
At the beginning of August, the Kansas Department of Transportation closed US 169 to traffic from Thayer South to US 400 to add passing lanes and replace the mainline pavement. As most of Thayer's business clients come out of town, the managers are seeing a considerable decrease in their income.
There's times I go without a paycheck, so the other employees, we don't have to lay them off. That way they can provide.
I really need the steakhouse stay open for our town and for my employees. We're going to lose money. There's no doubt about it for the next 2 or 3 months.
Clients are not the only ones not showing up to the city. Suppliers are also not going.
We have not had any of that bread for 3 to 4 weeks.
According to the KDOT area engineer, the construction timeline is going as planned. With that, the highway should be reopened by the end of October. The city clerk fears the impact of the road closure will last longer than the maintenance itself.
I think we're going to take a hit probably for a little while after, and then until everybody finally figures out we're back open, then I think we'll even back out.
Tracy Harbers shares the concern.
I don't want to be a ghost town. I want to keep Thayer the way it is and just keep continuing to grow.
Students are also being affected by the construction as many go to Cherryville for high school.
It typically would take our kids that go from Thayer to Cherryville 20 minutes, say, roughly to get to school. Now it takes like 45 to 50 minutes for them to be able to get to and from school.
While understanding the challenges that might lie ahead, this small town in Kansas is hopeful.
Once the road gets back open, it'll just be that much better.
In Thayer, Fernanda Silva, KOAM News.
Well, this weekend is Thayer's homecoming weekend. The city hopes the construction doesn't affect attendance in their biggest celebration of the year. Pitt State football today took on the Washburn Ichabods for their first game of the season, but before that, Gorilla fans got together for a tailgate party. Gorilla Fest featured bounce houses, balloons, face and hair painting, live music, and food. We'll have highlights from tonight's game as well as Missouri Southern's game later in the show. Pittsburgh State University aims to attract more future healthcare workers by opening a simulation hospital. KOAM's Amber Jenkins talked with future nurses about this upgrade in their studies.
It's official. The new simulation hospital on Pittsburgh State University campus is ready to train new nurses. Students, faculty, and alumni were eager to attend the long-awaited ribbon-cutting ceremony.
We have been working weekly all through COVID and after, and it is just a dream come true to have a simulation hospital with as realistic of an environment as we can possibly provide.
The $8 million simulation hospital was funded by private donors. Students will be able to work on a variety of AI-made patients performing different procedures.
We can do this with any age group, even the unborn, clear to the dying patient, well patients, sick patients, and we can share our simulation hospital with other pre-professional health programs.
While the simulation hospital was being built, nursing students had to adapt to other classrooms.
I've never been in this building except for a couple times last year whenever there was kind of going on at the beginning. So it was really interesting to see it all happen last year and hear about it, and we were all super excited to be in one building instead of being in 5 different buildings and trying to figure out where to go every day.
The 10,000 square foot simulation hospital includes preparation rooms, waiting areas, and more environments to immerse students and prepare them for the real deal.
It is so much different than a real patient, but I also think it's so much alike that I'm super excited to be able to use it, and hopefully it'll better my understanding of real patients whenever the time comes.
Reporting in Pittsburgh, Amber Jenkins, KOAM News.
Now, originally, the nursing school held approximately 65 students. Now it accommodates cohorts of 120 students. The Jasper County Treatment Court today helped raise awareness to a rising number of overdoses. They hosted a walk from the court's building to the Recovery Outreach Community Center.
There's so many overdoses that are happening today, and people don't realize what's in their drugs, what's being mixed in their drugs, and it's happening young kids all the way up to older, adults. And it's just something that the community needs to be aware of, and the importance of Narcan, of how it could save a life.
After the walk, the court hosted a training on how to use Narcan. Freeman today hosted a disaster seminar. The healthcare group recently hosted a similar session covering how to respond to a disaster, but today's session focused on how to prepare for one.
So we're having to re-educate people to understand what could happen. And as we talked about Joplin, it's not just locally here, the tornado. They have used the lessons learned from Joplin all across the country and the world.
Today's event happened at the Freeman Business Center. High school students who are part of the Franklin Technology Center program bringing a downtown Joplin building back to life. KOAM's Anthony Saviello has their story.
216 Commercial Alley, otherwise known as the Bullseye Building in downtown Joplin, has seen better days.
It's a strange feeling to just be working in this.
It's also real dark, so we got to keep turning on our flashlights to see the measurements and stuff.
I got my phone flashlight
Makes it just
on.
a little bit difficult to do work.
It's like awkward and, as he said, a little bit creepy.
Luckily, a few students in the area are getting to work to put this building back on target.
We get our students actual hands-on, real-world, work-based experience. They're going to be doing the heavy lifting. They will draw the plans that get submitted to the city. They will interact with the client and the contractor. They will be the ones answering questions. We really want them to find out what a day in the life of an architect is actually like.
Casey Tullis is an instructor at Franklin Technology Center. He's also the instructor leading these students on this endeavor.
A quarter of them, it's okay to say if they're all the same. It's okay to say this is the typical spacing.
He has high praise and expectations for them, After all, they have quite the project on their hands.
They will do inspections just like an architect would to come in and make sure that the plans are being followed. And if they're not being followed, they'll have to file the paperwork to keep track of all of that.
The owner of the building, Terry Donaldson, shares Casey's excitement for these students as they embark on this project, hoping that this building is able to once again show some life and hopefully not just be used for target practice. So there's no doubt these kids are going to have their hands full this year. But once this building is done, it's sure to be the talk of the town. Reporting in Joplin, I'm Anthony Saviello, KOAM News.
Well, the renovation is going to continue throughout the school year. The hope will be for students to have accomplished their goals and plans by the end of the school year. Well, coming up, how First Lady Jill Biden is spotlighting mental health concerns as students head back to the classroom. Back to school season is once again bringing up concerns about the mental state of kids in America. Many are struggling with anxiety and depression. Fox News correspondent Christina Coleman has the story.
You are not alone. You shouldn't have to face the rough edges of life of this world by yourself.
First Lady Dr. Jill Biden spotlighting mental health at a local high school in Westfield, Indianapolis on Wednesday. The visit is part of a series of back-to-school events being held across the nation, many focusing on the Biden administration's efforts to expand mental health resources through the bipartisan Safer Communities Act.
The youth mental health crisis in America represents a defining public health challenge.
Mental health has become a hot topic issue as students of all ages head back to school this fall. Despite the pandemic being over, health experts say students are still struggling with feelings of isolation and depression. It doesn't get any easier in college either. More than 60% of college students met the criteria for at least one mental health problem. That's according to the Health Mind study, which collected data from more than 300 campuses nationwide during the 2020-2021 school year.
The epidemic of suicidality and depression is serious.
Mental health experts say parents should support their kids by listening, communicating, and pushing them to get involved. They also encourage students to make healthy relationships during the school year.
You need to make some connections. Some students do that very organically and naturally, and then there's some people who it takes a lot of time, but they just need to make one or two solid connections.
Experts also encourage students to be aware of the mental health resources provided at their schools. Reporting in Los Angeles, Christina Coleman, Fox News.
Well, U.S. schools are dealing with a shortage of mental health support staff amid a growing need, and that has some institutions getting creative. The Washington Post reports the nation needs 77,000 more school counselors and almost as many psychologists to help. Some universities are expanding or modifying their counseling programs. California and other states are offering scholarships, and Chicago Public Schools is training nurses to address mental health. Well, Doug is next with a complete look at the forecast, and later, Pitt State and Missouri Southern begin their seasons at home tonight. Sports Director John Dales has the highlights.
Definitely turned out to be a nice day once again for us today. Temperatures are fantastic, but it is Thursday. Every Thursday, our new drought tracker comes out, kind of updates how much moisture is in the soil. Of course, we got quite a bit of rain at the beginning of the month, but over the past couple weeks, it's been fairly dry. Now, along and south of I-44, not doing too bad, just kind of dry. But as you get a little farther north, we jump into a moderate drought once you get into Pittsburgh, Nevada, an extreme drought, Independence, an extreme drought. So we are still seeing a lot of areas that really need the rain. Unfortunately, we just don't have much rain in the forecast. But for the month, of course, we start September tomorrow, just shy of 4 inches. But again, this was all in the first half of the month, so we're still almost 10 inches behind where we should be for this time of the year. All right, temperature is pretty good. Most of us are sitting mid to upper 70s across the board. Our humidity is great. Remember last week, dew points into the lower 80s. Not this week. Most of us are sitting 55 to 57, which if you look at our dew point tracker, that puts us in that kind of pleasant to not bad range. So at least the humidity is staying low as we go through the next couple days. 72 right now. Easterly winds are light. at about 5 miles per hour. We do have pretty much clear skies across the region. Most of the Central Plains looking pretty good. Clear skies. We're going to start the day on Friday with sunny skies. We do have a weak little upper level wave just south of New Orleans, which will play a little bit of havoc with us once we get into the holiday weekend. Besides that, you can see most of the lower 48 is pretty much dry. The remnants of a hurricane rushing out to sea, so we don't have to worry about that whatsoever after the southeast picked up quite a bit of rain over the past 48 hours. All right, let's go through time. I'm going to stop this for you at 7 a.m. Temperature sitting into the upper 50s. You can actually open up the windows for you tonight. We'll jump into lower 80s by noon. Once we get into the afternoon, I think very similar to what we saw today. 88, 89 degrees, lower 90s once you get into our western counties. Tomorrow night, very comfortable again. We drop back upper 50s to near 60. And then heading into your holiday weekend, Saturday looks good, a little bit warmer as we warm into lower 90s for afternoon highs on Saturday. Here's your day planner for you tomorrow. 61 to start, 81 by noon, 86 by 4. I think a high temperature similar to what we saw today, right around 89 degrees. All right, let's jump into the weekend. So we're going to go into Saturday. You can see that upper level low across parts of Louisiana. Tries to inch a little bit closer to us on Sunday into Monday. So this may wrap a few showers into the region as we get into Sunday and Monday, but I actually think our better chances for rain, they're actually going to hold off until next Tuesday as a cold front tries to push through. 89 tomorrow, lower 90s over the holiday weekend, hit and miss storms. Better chances for storms working in on Tuesday, and then temperatures hold into the middle 90s most of next week.
All right, thanks, Doug. Coming up, we'll take a look at what you can expect while traveling for the holiday weekend. Ford is recalling some of its trucks due to the potential of a break in its rear axle shaft. The company says nearly 42,000 2023 Super Duty F-250 and F-350 trucks are involved in the recall. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says the recalled trucks have a 10.5-inch rear axle shaft, which may have been, quote, improperly heat treated. The agency says a break in the axle shaft could cause the vehicle to roll away or a loss of drive power. Are you traveling this Labor Day weekend? Pack your patience and expect packed roads at airports and busy roads. According to AAA, more people are traveling over the holiday compared to last year. Jen Sullivan has a look at what you can expect.
If you're heading out of town over the long Labor Day weekend, travel experts say expect busy airports, packed roads, and long lines to get to your holiday destination.
There's reason to expect that Labor Day will look very similar to pre-pandemic, if not higher.
And according to a AAA forecast, Labor Day weekend travel will be up 4% over last year domestically. And while that's notable, experts say it's the increase in international bookings for Labor Day weekend that's jaw-dropping. Those bookings are up 44% over 2022. Travel expert Scott Kai says it may be because people are feeling safer to travel abroad.
This is the first summer that they felt comfortable doing so, and we have essentially 3 years of pent-up demand for international travel.
The TSA says Friday will be the biggest in terms of the number of passengers. It comes as Hurricane Idalia disrupts flights, triggering hundreds of cancellations and delays and forcing at least 2 airports to shut down operations.
Safety is paramount, and we have to ensure that we're protecting our employees and airport infrastructure that could be damaged by wind or water.
Meanwhile, for people hitting the road, gas prices are slightly less than they were at the same time last year. As of Wednesday afternoon, the national gas price average was $3.82, about 5 cents less than last year.
Well, up next, we'll learn why this bull is riding shotgun through the streets of a Nebraska town. A man in Nebraska is taking the rodeo to the road, carrying an adult bull in the passenger seat of his car. Police in Norfolk, Nebraska were notified of a, quote, cow inside a vehicle, and we know it wasn't a cow. We were surprised to see the driver, Lee Meyer, taking his fully grown bull for a ride. Now, Meyer was reportedly given a warning to be careful. The Watusi bull's name is Howdy Doody, and Maya regularly takes him to parades and fairs around the state. What a ride. 30 more minutes of news, weather, and sports is coming your way. A sheriff in Oklahoma gives details on why he thinks the BTK serial killer could be linked to a missing Oklahoma woman. Plus, former President Donald Trump enters his plea in the case about efforts to overturn the presidential election in Georgia. An Oklahoma sheriff says he thinks pictures that the BTK killer Dennis Rader took of himself may link the serial killer to cold cases in 3 different states. Now, the sheriff is investigating the missing person case of Cynthia Kinney, who was last seen at a laundromat in Oklahoma in 1976. Jocelyn Schifferdecker reports.
I go, "Is it 10, Dad?" And he goes, 10. And he rolls that 0.
Carrie Ralston recently asked her father, Dennis Rader, known as serial killer BTK, directly if he killed more than 10 people. She explains how she interpreted the roll of the 0.
And now I'm thinking, good God, man, how many times are you rolling that 0? Because I think you're trying to tell me it's more than 10.
After 18 years behind bars and convicted of killing 10 people, there's still a human element to Rader.
He was literally sobbing. He reached out for me. He hugged me. He kissed me.
Last week, Oklahoma investigators dug up the ground where Rader's Park City home once stood. They say they are 100% sure the killer had something to do with 16-year-old Cynthia Kinney's 1976 disappearance. Detectives also think he may have something to do with the murder of 22-year-old Shauna Garber in 1990.
And I said, "Hey, what do you think happened to Garber?" And it was like that dad mask came off, and it was like BTK.
Ralston doesn't believe her father.
It's not Dad claiming these. He is telling me directly that he didn't do these, and he's dodging. He's making up alibis. He's lying to my face.
When investigators found evidence at her family's former Park City home, Ralston says her father was speechless.
Interestingly enough, guys, he has not said one word since we dug up his precious yard. I think that's pretty telling. Like, I think he's shocked into muteness after 50 years.
Well, a newspaper reporter in Kansas has filed a federal lawsuit over a controversial search and seizure of her newsroom. Marion County Record reporter Debbie Groover has accused Marion Police Chief Gideon Cody of violating her rights. It stems from a raid on the paper over an investigation into the driving records of a local restaurant owner. Groover believes she was targeted because she had been investigating allegations of misconduct against Cody. Now, many were expecting to see former President Trump in a Georgia courtroom next week. It won't happen since he's entered a plea in his election interference case in the state. Fox News correspondent Madeline Rivera has more from Washington.
Former President Trump is pleading not guilty to the charges in the Georgia election interference case, and he's waiving a formal arraignment, avoiding the spectacle of what could have been his first televised court appearance next week.
I think he has made a calculation that he gets most of the benefit and less downside from not appearing personally, not paying a bunch of lawyers to be there for an appearance that's generally perfunctory, where you plead not guilty and the judge sets some deadlines.
18 of Trump's allies were also charged in a sweeping indictment that accuses them of scheming to overturn his 2020 election loss. Several of them are sparring with Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. Some, like Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, are trying to move their cases to federal court.
I think that whether Mark Meadows wins that motion or doesn't is not going to make a substantive difference on how ultimately a jury is going to be asked to make these decisions at the time of trial.
As the legal proceedings unfold, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp is rejecting calls from some conservative state lawmakers for a special legislative session to remove Willis. Kemp says he hasn't seen evidence that warrants her impeachment.
The bottom line is that in the state of Georgia, as long as I'm governor, we're going to follow the law and the Constitution, regardless of who it helps or harms politically.
Willis wants to try all 19 defendants in October. Trump's team aims to delay and separate his case from anyone who files to have a speedy trial. In Washington, Madeline Rivera, Fox News.
During a press conference in Kentucky, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell froze during a question and answer session. It's the second time this summer the 81-year-old Kentucky senator has suddenly stopped speaking for a number of seconds during a press conference. The senator's office says he became momentarily lightheaded. McConnell did attend a fundraiser later in the day. A bit later, a push for extended overtime for workers across the country.
Definitely turned out to be a nice day once again for us today. Temperatures are fantastic, but it is Thursday. Every Thursday, our new drought tracker comes out, kind of updates how much moisture is in the soil. Of course, we got quite a bit of rain at the beginning of the month, but over the past couple weeks, it's been fairly dry. Now, along and south of I-44, not doing too bad, just kind of dry. But as you get a little farther north, we jump into a moderate drought once you get into Pittsburgh, Nevada, an extreme drought, Independence, an extreme drought. So we are still seeing a lot of areas that really need the rain. Unfortunately, we just don't have much rain in the forecast. But for the month, of course, we start September tomorrow, just shy of 4 inches. But again, this was all in the first half of the month, so we're still almost 10 inches behind where we should be for this time of the year. All right, temperature is pretty good. Most of us are sitting mid to upper 70s across the board. Our humidity is great. Remember last week, dew points into the lower 80s. Not this week. Most of us are sitting 55 to 57, which if you look at our dew point tracker, that puts us in that kind of pleasant to not bad range. So at least the humidity is staying low as we go through the next couple days. 72 right now. Easterly winds are light at about 5 miles per hour. We do have pretty much clear skies across the region. Most of the Central Plains looking pretty good. Clear skies. We're going to start the day on Friday with sunny skies. We do have a weak little upper level wave just south of New Orleans, which will play a little bit of havoc with us once we get into the holiday weekend. Besides that, you can see most of the lower 48 is pretty much dry. The remnants of our hurricane rushing out to sea, so we don't have to worry about that whatsoever after the southeast picked up quite a bit of rain over the past 48 hours. All right, let's go through time. I'm going to stop this for you at 7 a.m. Temperature sitting into the upper 50s. You can actually open up the windows for you tonight. We'll jump into lower 80s by noon. Once we get into the afternoon, I think very similar to what we saw today. 88, 89 degrees, lower 90s once you get into our western counties. Tomorrow night, very comfortable again. We drop back upper 50s to near 60. And then heading into your holiday weekend, Saturday looks good. A little bit warmer as we warm into lower 90s for afternoon highs on Saturday. Here's your day planner for you tomorrow. 61 to start, 81 by noon, 86 by 4. I think a high temperature similar to what we saw today, right around 89 degrees. All right, let's jump into the weekend. So we're going to go into Saturday. You can see that upper level low across parts of Louisiana. Tries to inch a little bit closer to us on Sunday into Monday. So this may wrap a few showers into the region as we get into Sunday and Monday, but I actually think our better chances for rain, they're actually going to hold off until next Tuesday as a cold front tries to push through. 89 tomorrow, lower 90s over the holiday weekend, hit-miss storms. Better chances for storms working in on Tuesday, and then temperatures hold into the middle 90s most of next week.
Thanks, Doug. Coming up in sports, college football season in the 4 states gets started. We've got highlights from Pitt State and Missouri Southern's first games tonight up next.
College football season is officially here, and in the 4 states, that means the place to be is Carney Smith Stadium on the campus of Pittsburgh State. The 4th-ranked Gorillas opening the season at home on a Thursday night against Washburn. Both offenses rusty to start. 0-0 in the start of the second until Chad Dodson finds All-American tight end Devin Garrison on 4th and 1. Pick up 28. The offense stalls just outside the end zone, so the first points of the year, 23-yard Austin Schmidt field goal. Same score, 2 minutes to halftime, and then this sack by Jack Barkley forces Washburn out of field goal range. Pitt State threatens to take a 2-score lead before half, but Dodson sacked by Phoenix Smith. Gorillas settled for 3. 6-0 lead into half. Pitt State defense comes to play in the third quarter, though. Antoine Nunn Jr. gets the interception, sets Pitt State up at the Washburn 27-yard line. That was the first drive of the second half. 4 plays later, Dodson calls his own number on a quarterback sneak. Took some time, but the officials say yes, touchdown. Each offense wakes up. A little bit in the second half, Pitt State holds a 34-7 lead with 6 minutes remaining. Missouri Southern also at home tonight, hoping for a big upset, facing the number 5 team in the nation, Northwest Missouri State. Southern, obviously, with a tough matchup against the 5th-ranked Bearcats. First drive of the game, though, and MSSU showing it is here to play. Luke Sampson drops back to pass, airs it out deep, and he finds David Bethune for a 64-yard touchdown. Just like that, Lions strike first. They open their season up with a big play. Second quarter, same score, 7-0. Sampson scrambling, and he finds Deontay Campbell in the end zone for another touchdown. MSSU raising some eyebrows. They're up 14-0. Later in the second, Lions lead 14-7. Catch of the night, Ezekiel Lang. Fantastic grab, goes full extension, leads to a 46-yard field goal, so the Lions take a 17-7 lead. Then some trickery comes from Northwest, though. They're the higher-ranked team. They're on the road. They get the onside kick, and they recover it after scoring. That leads to an easy Bearcat touchdown. Jay Harris scores. Missouri Southern held its own for a while, but gets outscored 7-0 in the fourth quarter. They fall to 0-1 on the season. High school football also happening tonight. A few Missouri teams in action. One of them is Joplin, who's coming off a big Week 1 win on the road in Branson. And the Eagles improved to 2-0 on the young season with a 28-14 victory at home over Willard. Not quite as close as the final score might even tell you, because the Tigers were trailing by 3 touchdowns. They scored on the final play when this one was already out of reach. Torrin Jones scores 3 touchdowns in the win for Joplin. And Chavis Coleman comes up with a big second half interception. Another high school football game happening in the 4 states. Mount Vernon all over Monette. 42-7 final score, and the Mountaineers moved to 2-0 on the young season after a 10-point win at McDonald County last week. Cubs fall to 0-2 on the year. Mount Vernon stays at home hosting Aurora next week on Friday night. That's all for sports. Back with more news after this.
A new rule by the Department of Labor is pushing for extended overtime for workers across the U.S. Fox's Corin Hoggard has more on this story.
Frying up burgers qualifies for time and a half pay when a worker goes past 40 hours in a week on the job. Same for hammering away at home construction. But under U.S. labor rules, overtime pay isn't always available for workers off to the sidelines. Companies can avoid OT pay if they have workers on salary and performing roles that qualify as executive, administrative, or professional, so-called white-collar jobs. Right now, even those workers still get overtime pay if they earn less than $35,568 a year. That means no OT for a white-collar worker making more than $17.10 an hour. Labor advocates are supporting the new Department of Labor rule that would raise the salary threshold to $55,000, the equivalent of $26.44 per hour.
This is what's fair and this is what's right. So people who work long hours and over 40 hours should be getting paid for those hours.
President Biden pushed a similar rule change in 2016 when he was vice president, but business interests got it thrown out in courts. Labor leaders are expecting another fight.
I'm sure there will be. But I think long term, hopefully folks will realize again that this is what's best for everybody, and that if we want to raise the standard of living in the United States of America, this is important for folks.
Business interests don't sound convinced. The National Retail Federation released a statement saying, quote, "The administration's proposed threshold is well above the rate of inflation. We're not convinced that such an increase is warranted at this time," end quote. And the National Association of Manufacturers communications team said the organization may have to take legal action again.
A 90-year-old nurse is still caring for patients despite her age. We'll take a look at her story up next. A nurse in Arizona is proving that when it comes to taking care of others, age is nothing but a number. At age 90, Ellie Ucci is still attending to patients. Fox's Danielle Miller takes us to meet this exceptional nurse.
Good morning, Katrina. How are you? How was your night?
Eleanor Ucci, or Ellie, as she's called here at Banner Gateway, is doing what she does every day. Checking on her patients and their brand new babies. Ellie started her nursing career in 1954, and now, at 90 years old, she's still going strong.
I nurture people, and that's my forte. That's what makes me going. I'm very, very fortunate in life because I get to love what I do and do what I love.
Ellie, who says she's always wanted to be a nurse from a young age, has worked in all fields of nursing.
No, baby
She now works in the postpartum unit of labor and delivery. This has been one of her favorite journeys so far.
You know what, the thing that I love the most? When I hear a little sibling walking down the hall, the pitter-patter of their feet, and I hear them go, "Where's mommy?" That breaks, oh my God, it gets to me like you can't believe. And I hear their little voices say, "Brother, sister, baby."
And while most of her friends retired when medicine went digital, Ellie said, no way.
I'm not going to let that beat me down. I'm going to conquer you, and I did, okay? I can computerize with the best of them, okay? Sometime even better.
As far as her future, she says she has no date for retirement in mind.
I'm going to keep doing it until God says, okay, Ellie, this is time. I tell the girls I work with, you see me slipping, tell me, because I want to go out on top.
On top, she definitely will.
That's my first, yeah.
Oh my God.
Could you imagine that? 1954, this is what I look like. How about that? A real nurse with a cap. We don't wear caps anymore.
What a great story. That's our time for tonight. Thanks for joining us. We're going to leave you with video of a Nyala calf at the Brookfield Zoo. Have a great night and an even better tomorrow.